We are adjourned now. Tonight, for our speaker, we have Linus Stampfl, and he's going to talk a bit about athletics in Verona. He goes back a long time, Linus and I do, at least, and he goes back farther than that, because he's a lot older than me. You ain't kidding. But Linus is responsible for a lot of the athletic things that have happened around town here. He used to be on the park board before it was popular, and way back when I was on city council, there weren't any backstops even in the city for playing ball. A lot of people take for granted the beautiful baseball complexes that we have here today in the city and some of the other athletic facilities. But they wouldn't be there if he had paved the way for that through some of his hard work on volunteering on the park board, planting trees. I don't know what he all was responsible for it. So we're really lucky to have a guy like Ryan around town that's paid attention to that, been involved with youth baseball and adult baseball and other athletic events. So he's going to just bring us up to date a little bit on some of the athletic events that happen around town, where they were, and how the status of the day, or maybe I don't know what. So how he participated. So Laney, if you want to start talking, we'll keep on urging you here.
All right. Quite a few years ago, I was commissioner of the Hometown Baseball League. And I got quite a few requests as commissioner to go out and speak. And I really enjoyed doing it. I went to the West Side Optimists, the Madison Kiwanis, and different groups. One day I got a phone call, and they asked me if I'd like to be the speaker for the Madison Pen and Mic Club. So, sure, So I go up to the Park Hotel and go into this main ballroom up there. Man, I mean, there was 300 people there. I had
Just like this, I like.
Yeah, I looked around and I thought, what's going on? They sure when they come to see me. So we go up, we sit down at the head table, and sitting next to me is Olympian ice skater Mark Johnson. The United States had just won the Olympic gold medal. And Mark was there to say a few words. And so the master of ceremonies first, he introduced Mark. He gets a standing ovation. I mean, 300 people are clapping and cheering, Well, I did too, But then after he didn't say much, a few words. Well, then, of course, it was my turn. Well, they announced me. The room was totally silent. This is impossible. How did I get roped into this kind of deal? But it was fun. It was really a fun time to be part of that. Mark was a great kid, coaching at UW, And I had a chance to sit through the whole dinner part of it with him and talk to him. Wonderful guy, and learned a lot about his friends on the Olympic team. So it was more than me getting up representing the hometown baseball league. But so I've gone out and done this quite a few times in different groups, and I always enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun to reminisce some of the things that went on in my life. But today I heard before we started about athletics, I heard kind of a strange story about, how you can find out who loves you the most, your dog or your wife. Well, what you do, John,
Thank you.
You grab your dog in one hand and you grab your wife in the other hand, and you throw them both in the trunk of your car. And you leave them in there for about an hour. And then you go and you open up the trunk and see which one is glad to see you. So that's pretty serious stuff.
Yeah, I think so.
But John asked me to talk a little bit about Verona sports. Not more so much the current stuff, but what I talk a little bit more about was kind of the beginning of Verona sports. You know, I grew up in Verona. Have you got a glass of water?
Yeah, I got some.
Oh,
I have been.
If you want water, 7-Up.
Oh, just water.
Okay.
Yeah. But having grown up in Verona, and I went to the old grade school, which still stands up, which was is now part of New Century Charter School. And at that time, we had 4 teachers, and some of you I know will remember them. Elmer Gordon was the principal, and his wife was Ruth. We had 3 other teachers, Miss Cotherman, Miss Hawley, and Lord, I can't remember the first and second grade teacher's name. But Mr. Gordon was quite a person. He not only taught 7th and 8th grade, but he was the principal. He was in charge of the patrol boy units that helped. Even then, we had to have kids helping getting across the highway there in front of the school. He was in charge of that, and he also took the time to originate our grade school basketball and softball teams. So that was really, I would say, my first formal exposure to Verona sports. I was probably in 5th grade. Prior to that, I played ball in the backyard with my dad, who was quite an athletically inclined person himself. But Mr. Gordon was a unique man in that we had no equipment, you might say. The little gym in that building was so small and the ceiling was so low that we couldn't shoot conventional 10-foot high basket. We had to put the basket low so that we wouldn't be hitting the ceiling all the time, which was quite a disadvantage when we went to play somebody downtown because their baskets were 1.5 or 2 feet higher than ours. But it was through his efforts that, I taste pretty good. There's a little vodka in there yet? But through his efforts, we managed to maintain a basketball program, which we ended up playing, maybe 6, 7, 8 games. But in those days, you know, everybody basically was working. There weren't a lot of 2-car families. So we never had cars. You know, if we had to go, like, just to Belleville or Middleton or wherever, we had a devil of a time. Mr. Gordon had a car, but nobody's, like my dad, could never go. He was working, and we had the same problem. So there was a lady, and you guys would probably remember this, was a guy named Joe Bryan. Joe and Myrtle and Clara. Joe and Clara. And their friend was Myrtle Williamson. But we'd have to go down and beg them to see if we could get one of them to drive part of our team. Otherwise, we couldn't go out and play anybody. We had no way of getting there. But they were always good to us. They transported us around for nothing. And we weren't really very good. But we had a lot of fun. At one point in time, Mr. Gordon entered us in a tournament out in Bartlett. Boy, this, was a big deal. Going to a tournament, 4 teams. And we got out there, and Barnwell had this little hotshot playing for him by the name of Rush Watson.
Rush.
Oh.
Rush became the hotshot salesman for years and years for Winker. And a longtime friend of mine. I've known Rush my entire life. But in grade school, he was the big scorer. I mean, he was a machine. There wasn't a shot that he didn't like. So we go out there and play, and I ended up getting stuck guarding him. And he shot, but Lord, he couldn't make any of them. He just shot, and he shot, and he missed and missed. And we ended up losing in a very close game. We played another game which we won, so we were pretty successful. So there was another team that was touring the area. You know the guy very well, Merlin Wass.
Oh, yeah. I used to play.
Did you play for him?
Yeah.
He had a team called Bluebirds.
Bluebirds.
So they lined our Verona kids up to go and play the Bluebirds. Well, we thought, God, this is a duck soup deal. These are all a bunch of farm guys from West Middleton. Little did we know. The first time we played them, I would say conservatively, we lost by about 60. And then they had to come back to Verona. We had to play them again. And it was just as bad. We got just massacred. I mean, those guys, and Merlin kept that Bluebirds team going for, what, 50 years?
50-some years, yeah. And in fact, they still do have that Bluebirds team. But Merlin is, he's in pretty bad health. I think he's in Attic Angels right now. He had a rough winter, but, yeah, he gets that vote for.
But it was a wonderful start to an athletic career. You know, it was killed. Well, Mr. Gordon, you know, it didn't make any difference to him. You know, he just helped us. He really wasn't fluent at coaching.
Yeah.
You know, he just give you the ball, and run around, and we didn't know what we were doing. Then in the spring, though, then we had our softball team. And we had both boys. We didn't have a very big school, as you probably know, so we had boys and girls on our team, so did everybody else. But we went around and played like Andrew Henry and McPherson and Pioli. We had a lot of fun. But the most memorable game was the day that we had to go down to Pioli to play. And the little ball diamond there next to the school was also the grazing grounds for the guys' dairy herd.
Is that the schoolhouse?
It's something in there now.
Schoolhouse, shops or something?
Yeah, the shop.
Oh.
So we go out to play ball. Everywhere you ran around, and the grass was about that high, which was typical in a grazed field, you know. Jeez, we run around out there, what's guys? Guys stepping in cowboys everywhere. It was just a big thing. But when we got done, I don't think we had a single person on our team that didn't have the pleasure of at least getting 1 foot in one of them damn things. So that was a pretty innocent beginning to a long softball career. But I've got to thank Mr. Gordon very wholeheartedly. He's a wonderful guy. He went out of his way to do things for us kids. You know, we didn't have much in school those days. We had an older man named Jake Maurer, who was the janitor. And Jake was the one janitor for both schools. Morning, he'd stoke up the old furnace at our little school. He'd walk across the football field to the high school area, and he'd crank that thing up. And in the meantime, all us kids had duties at school. When we got to school first thing in the morning, if it had snowed, there was a bunch of snow shovels right inside the door. And the first 4 or 5 boys who got there, we had to shovel the sidewalk. We didn't have anybody to shovel this stupid thing. We had kids that had to wash the chalkboards. That was their job. Other kids emptied the waste baskets.
Flat erasers.
And some of the guys had the best job of all. They got down in the furnace room and carry out the big old clinkers. Jake, he cleaned them out of the furnace and he put them in these big buckets. And then as kids, we'd have to go out and carry them out in the backyard and put them on the pile. That was a fun job because you could goof off on it. You could hide. But, you know, nowadays, if a kid had to do anything like that, you'd probably have a lawsuit. But in those days, we had to do that to get things done at school. And, you know, nobody minded. We had so many fun memories of those grade school days with Elmer. You know, he'd go and he'd ring the bell to start school days, especially at noon. When he'd ring the noon bell for everybody to come in off the playground, his class was ready to start. The guys would sneak up in the tower up there, and the rope was hanging, and he'd go and he'd tie a knot in the rope, and he'd go and he'd go and he wouldn't ring the bell. The rope was he had a knot tied in the ceiling. So he'd have to come out and stand out there, holler, you guys get in here. But, you know, the grade school portion of my activities was really some of the most fun times I ever remember. I played a ton of sports, but I don't think I could ever remember anything more fun than those times. Once we got into high school, of course, then we joined forces with all the country school kids that were coming into town. And at that time, some of my great friends were kids like Bob Orchard and Jerry Smith, John Ross, Harlan Erfurth, Bob Culliffe, kids who were coming from the suburban area that we really never had much of a chance to get to know. The only formal education we had with those guys athletically was when Coach Ralph Frank arrived on the scene in Verona. He got us guys together on Saturday mornings, and he had, because of lack of transportation, a lot of those days, he had to go get them himself. He'd drive out in the country, pick the kids up, and then we'd practice basketball. And he taught us, you know, some of the basic fundamentals of the game of basketball. But we didn't have any...
Did you know that that was his first job after college?
I don't know if it was, it might have been. He was pretty young.
We were classmates.
Oh, really? Oh, he was funny guy. I was like,
I'll tell you about that. Not on camera.
but he,
I don't want to hear it.
but he brought us along, and he spent a lot of time with us on his own, unpaid. You know, nowadays, if any extra activity is done by a school member, first went out and check. But none of these people were getting anything extra for any of this. It was all volunteer stuff that Mr. Gordon did on his own, and we didn't get paid nothing. In fact, one of the funnier things I remember in grade school, and I'll get on something else, was one day somebody, you know, the teachers didn't make any money in those days. And one of our kids in our class, they had butchered, and they brought Miss Cothran a chicken. Here they had butchered chickens. And they brought a chicken to school and gave it to her so she could take that home. She was a single lady at that time and have something decent to eat. I couldn't believe that was actually happening. They had it all butchered and cut up for a nice chicken. But once we got into high school, Verona was small. We had maybe 120 when I was a freshman total. We had a very large freshman class, 45 kids. We had 35 boys and only 10 girls.
Oh,
But in those days, you know, it was popular especially for the farm kids, just hope to get to be 16 before you got kicked out of school. Because then at 16 you could quit. By the time that we got to be graduating seniors, we only had 29 kids.
no kidding.
We had 20 boys and 9 girls. We lost 1 girl and had a lot of boys. Some went in the military, and some just chose to go home and work on the farm or whatever. But the school was fun. We had Mr. Jones, Mr. Bert Jones was the longtime principal. And, you know, our athletic endeavors weren't real successful. Before I actually arrived in high school, Verona was playing 6-man football. They had guys like John Scher, Dick Laughlin, and Paul Marty, I think, played with those guys. But as Coach Frank arrived on the scene, he insisted that we switch to 11-man football. Well, we were pretty, you know, we didn't have a lot of kids to play 11-man. But my freshman year, I didn't go out my dad until I was so skinny that I'd get killed. So, yeah, it's hard to believe that. And, but we had a lot of big guys that you probably remember with Henry Abley and Buck Schaller and Meatball Huffman. We had the Dwayne Bray and Doug Ray and the Tollefson boys. But we had a huge group of guys for a couple of years and did pretty well. But all of a sudden they all graduated. And then here come our group. Bunch of 140-pound little scrawny guys. So we got crushed pretty badly a few times. But Coach Frank, he hung in there for, I guess he was here for my first 3 years. And then, well, maybe my only first 2 years. Then we got a coach by the name of Jim Dimmick. He had just come out of the military. And this was his first coaching job. And he and his wife moved into Verona, and he took over football, basketball, and baseball. And our total coaching faculty was Nelson Harding, who was a full-time teacher, and Coach Dimmick, who was a full-time teacher. And I brought along a picture of our football team, if I can find it quickly. But this was our team in 1953. Now we had, if you look, you can pass it around, look at it. The kids that are on there, that was freshmen, sophomore, junior, and seniors. 21 guys, 2 coaches.
Where are you?
I think, let's see, I got one. Must be, I'm probably the biggest guy there, right there. The littlest guy on there.
Oh, yeah.
But we had, with playing 11-man football with only 21 players, it created some problems because it was hard to have a full-scale practice when you didn't have 11 guys on offense and 11 on defense. And then we had injuries. So one game we went out of town, I think we only took 18 players. And we had to play 11-man football. We were in a conference with Sun Prairie, Middleton, Oregon. Oh, we took some awful turns. But we showed up.
What conference were you in?
Suburban. Madison Suburban.
Middleton, wasn't that?
Yeah, then they moved out.
Yeah.
My senior year, they were gone. But we played up against Sun Prairie State all through high school. But the guys on that program, that particular picture, we had a lot of very talented young freshmen coming in. Dick Hageman and Ray Maurer was a sophomore that year. But these kids, they were good players, tough. Austin Jacobs, Hermie Daniels is on there, longtime Rome police officer.
Jim on there.
Jim's in the front row with, I'm sitting next to Jim.
Right.
Bob Orchard, Jerry Smith,
Jim Backer was
Backer. But we ended up, that team,
Booker Backer.
yeah, that team improved under Coach Frank and Coach Dimmick until our senior year we went 4 and lost 4. After that, we were very competitive, a couple of conference championships.
Wow.
With Jerry Benino, Herbie Daniels, and those guys. We kind of found our niche, but you know, nowadays the protective equipment is so good for the kids. Back when we played, you know, the helmets were those soft shell things.
Yeah.
You know, you get somebody with your head on the top of your helmet, came right against the top of your head. The guys take their helmet off, pound it out, and put it back on. There's no face guards. On our team, we had 2 pair of rib pads for the whole team. So if somebody complained that they had taken a hit to the ribs the week before, they might get the rib pads for that week. But there's only 2 guys that have. The rest of the guys played. Luke Miller, he played with a broken nose. He had a bad back. Rich Rotar had a broken nose. But you know, we guys get hurt and they get cut and bleed, play right through it. Now, if you had just a little tiny cut, you're out of the game. I don't care if you're in basketball, baseball, whatever. You're automatically taken out. You can't play until the injury is treated. But I remember Richard Rotar, you know, he had kind of a big snots. And when he hit somebody, he was a big, strong guy. God, he was a powerful guy. He hit a guy, and a darn helmet came down and cut right on the bridge of his nose and lay that right. And that could never heal, because by the time when he got to the next Friday night, he was just getting a good scab on it. And then the same thing, he ripped that scab off. And he played the whole game. He never won. He was a tough son of a guy. But you know, nowadays, he wouldn't get to play at all. Well, now he would, because we got beautiful helmets, great shoulder pads. Everything improved so very much. Basketball was another story. We had the Verona High School gym at that time was a small gym. Our predecessors up there were a very good group of guys with Paul Marty, John Scher, Leo Sweeney, Billy Schutz. They had some real good ball clubs. They had our first real big guy that I can remember playing was a guy named Joe Stoics. Joe was probably 6'4", 6'5", tall guy. Joe lived very short life. Got sick, I don't know exactly what happened, but he died at a very, very young age. And but the basketball program in Verona was never really too bad. And as I got through high school, we were fortunate enough, Bob Collins became a very good basketball player. Orchard was a good ball player. So we came in second a couple of years, and we won the championship my senior year. So we were fairly successful. My favorite sport, of course, and everyone thinks the only thing I really liked was of course, baseball. And Coach Frank was quite the guy when he was coaching baseball. He absolutely hated baseball. He was our coach. So we'd go down to his office, and he'd give us a bag of bats and balls, and we all played at the old Church Street Diamond, which is now where the Sugar River Nursing Home Senior Center is. So we just walked out of school, and that was where we played. And he wouldn't even come out. He said, "You guys, you go out now." He'd tell me, I was one of the co-captains. He said, "You guys, you go out and take some batting practice." He said, "You can pitch and so and so." Okay. He said, "I'll be out after me." So he'd go out and come out maybe in an hour, and we'd take a little bit of an infield. And he himself was an outstanding softball pitcher. The guy he was almost like a world-class softball pitcher. So after practice,
Tell me about it.
yeah, when he was tough. The guy. So then what he'd do though, to work on his own personal skills, he'd say to me and 4 or 5 of the other guys, "And I want you guys to stick around after practice." "Oh yeah." So he'd pitch to us. He'd pitch softball to us, and we're supposed to have baseball practice. Boy, you couldn't hit him. I mean, he was smoking the babies in there, they're up and down. We were having a hell of a time trying to hit him. But, you know, I tell you, I do think it helped in a way in that you play baseball, you learn quickness. You're ready to get the bat off your shoulder in a hurry. Otherwise, the ball is in the catcher's mitt all the time. But he just, it was a funny thing. Here's a guy that was a wonderful coach and was named, he was awarded at a big ceremony, coach's coach, they called it. He was put on by a group of guys from Verona and Jefferson. And people from Haver, Montana, where he had gone when he left Verona. Well, he left Verona, went to Jefferson, then to Montana, came back. But a whole group of people came from Montana to help honor him at that party that night. And he, you know, so he was really well liked. He was the kind of guy, if you gave him everything you had, and you only weighed 130 pounds, he was your best friend. If you weighed 230 and you didn't put much out, he was mean. He could really get on people's back. You know, he just had no use for somebody that was just jumping around and doing nothing. So what I did, I was going through some small junk going to clean out my dad's house. And years ago when they played baseball, this was what an old-time glove kind of looked like. Wow. This one is in particularly bad shape. But you notice at that time it was quite small. I don't know how these big guys got their hand in there, but they just called it a mitt. It wasn't laced in the fingers or anything. It was just a plain old glove. And so I thought, it's something that probably nobody's ever seen a piece of junk like that.
Wow. That's why they got these two fingers here.
Yeah, they're kind of tied together. And shortly thereafter, they came out with a glove like the one that Olker used to wear when he played center field for Military Junction.
We won't go there.
And this glove, they improved it by putting a web in and lacing the fingers together, which, you know, made it a little bit more defensive weapon.
Yeah.
So
they got three fingers.
now, the reason I brought this one up is the one I thought John used in center field. I know John doesn't want to know about this, but one day I was playing over the Speedway, and John was a good ball player, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
John was a real good ball player. But he was playing center field, and one of our players hit a high, lazy fly ball to center field. And John comes in, I got it. Oh, no, I don't.
He sits there laughing later. I remember that.
There he is, laying in center field.
That's what I was thinking. Honey, which one are you? What number?
The front row, 22.
22.
Yeah.
Is Hermie on there too?
Hermie is on there, yeah, I can't really see where he is from here. I should have written all the games on it.
You should do that. Before you get too old.
I picked you out, I don't know why, but I did.
You did?
I didn't know it was Hermie. Oh, Hermie is number 32, he's kind of right behind me.
You were 22.
Yeah.
Herbie was our chief of police, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Some of the other guys out there.
Oh, they're, yeah.
But to show you the way the game changed,
Yeah, that looks like.
as I played toward the end of my illustrious career,
Wow.
I couldn't find my actual baseball glove. I don't know what I did with it. But I played a lot of slow pitch softball and some fast pitch softball after I played baseball. And this is how the gloves had changed. They went to a much bigger mitt. This company developed a glove that they put these little dimples in it. The idea was that a rotating ball hitting a glove, these dimples would help to take the spin off the ball and keep you from dropping so many pop-ups.
Yeah, well, you didn't have to actually.
Yeah, you actually got to touch it
Yeah,
first.
you got to touch it first.
But then as the things went on, they changed the rules even more. And I had this glove laying at the house. They made it so a glove could actually be 14.5 inches long, from top to bottom. I mean, look at the size of that thing compared to what the original ball players were trying to use.
Yeah,
It's just hard to believe that, you know, a weapon this big, how can you miss something?
This looks like
You know, on the way in here, I was
I don't know what it looks
talking
like.
to the young trainer boy that's in the wheelchair out there.
This one got left out in the rain a bunch of times.
You know, Jack Trainer, I got pictures of some of these other things laying around here. And Jack and I played together for quite a few years. And I actually was in Jack's wedding when he got married years ago. And when Jack was playing center field, which is a bad field, I guess, for us. And one game we were playing, I did a high fly ball with Jack in center field. And Jack was like, John, he came in. I got it. The ball hit him right on top of the head. I still don't know how that ever happened. And down he goes, a big heap in center field, ball over his head for a home run. But here I got a picture of Jack, one of my buddies. Now, this picture here, a baseball player, a lot of you probably recognize, had a picture of Keith Simmons, Harold Zerbakken, Jack Trainer. In the front is Jerry Bonino and Jerry Speth. Way up in the back corner is Herbie Daniels. Way in the far right, far left, well, however you look at it, is me.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah. But, and this other one, I don't think I'm on. This is more of an old-timer picture that was taken while I was in the military. And the little bat boy in the front is Guy Gust. The bat boy in the other one is Greg Stamp. And this one there again, it's got Harold Zerbakken and Skippy Gust, Teddy Spellman, Don Lanier, Keith Simmons, George Gust, Paul Marty, John Scher, Dick Buss. You guys probably know, well, I know Mark probably knows almost all of those guys. But that picture was in about 1955. I was gone in the Navy for 3 years, so I didn't have a chance to participate a lot with that particular group of guys. But it was a lot of fun playing with them when I had a chance. But the old group with Trainer and those guys, that was kind of when I was first getting out of high school playing ball. It was really a lot of fun to be horsing around. I had a couple others here that I don't know, these aren't that much.
So what year did you graduate from high school?
54.
No, Charles Stampfl, how about him? Now, what was he?
Well, John asked me to say a few words about the naming of Stampfl Field. The original naming of this field occurred back on the Church Street Diamond. I think Jim Burke was behind this and some other people. At the time that I brought this clipping on and passed that out, that clipping was when my dad retired. But during his playing years, my dad on his own was quite a successful baseball player. And during his playing days, there were traveling Negro teams around the area, the House of David, the Kansas City Monarchs, and there was, I think, a team out of Chicago.
Was there one out of St. Louis?
And maybe St. Louis.
Browns or something?
There was 3 or 4 traveling Negro teams. My dad pitched and played the outfield, but he actually got to play against all those guys. And so he actually was involved in baseball for quite a few years, but not necessarily in Verona. At that time, when I was just a little guy, Verona actually didn't form a home talent team until 41. So my dad by then was, my dad would have been in his middle 30s by then. So I really never got much of a chance to ever see him play. But, I knew other things he had done playing. And his playing career took him into playing in the Madison Industrial League. He used to pitch for the Penn Electric team in Madison. This turned out to be quite a bonus for Verona. He became a very good personal friend of Cliff Penn. Cliff Penn was in the electrical business. And through my dad and Cliff Penn, that kind of initiated the first set of lights that we ever got in our football and softball field, baseball field. Cliff gave Verona a tremendous deal. How on earth, I don't know what it would cost today, but that set of 9 poles and all the lights was fully installed, hooked up, ready to go for $9,000.
Wow. Those were pretty good lights.
They weren't bad at all. And $1,000 a pole. So the honor that went my dad's way was partially the result of his athletic prowess. Much of it really had more to do with the fact that he was on the school board for Christ, I don't know, I think 20, 25 years. And, being in the bank, as a sideline to his banking business, he also took care of the bookwork for a lot of the cheesemakers in the area. They weren't necessarily businessmen, they were cheesemakers. So my dad would sit at the dining room table at night. He would do the bookwork for like the Wild Cheese Factory, the Rosalie Cheese Factory. He had, I think, 4 of them. And he did the bookworks for those fellas. And of course, they paid him a few dollars to do. It was just like he was a modern day bookkeeper or accountant.
Yeah.
Which he really wasn't, he was a banker. But it gave him a few extra dollars to support us bandits at home. But he contributed a lot through the community. He helped organize our first ever organized youth baseball. I don't know, you guys remember Mrs. Shuttler? Annie Shuttler? Oh, she was the telephone operator.
Oh, yeah, her name's been brought up several times.
Oh,
Yeah,
and
her office, of course, was above the old bank building, and her grandson is one of my best buddies, Doug Cleveland.
Oh,
Well, that particular summer, we were kids that were, I suppose we were probably 6th grade maybe.
yes, son.
And Red Shuttler came home to stay with his mother that summer. I think he was going to summer school at the UW. Well, he didn't have anything to do in the evening, so he and my dad got together and got some baseballs and bats and invited a bunch of kids to come up a couple nights a week for kind of an informal baseball practice. And Red was already a coach. He very knowledgeable man, very nice man. And he taught us guys a lot about the fundamentals of baseball. Between he and my dad, we never complained. There wasn't any other programs similar to that around here. But it really helped to kind of get started somewhere. And I always liked Red. I met him many, many times over the next 30, 40 years. And he was very, very successful in everything he did. And but we used to have fun when we'd go to meet him in the afternoon to go to practice. We'd run upstairs and they had those little party lines. And Mrs. Shuttler, she'd be up there to the phone ring, she'd point, and everybody pick up the phone. George, get off the phone. Sure, everybody listened to everybody else's conversations. You know, times were so different. The fun times, I think, were more back then.
yeah.
Now everything is so straight-laced, so perfect. Those days we had more fun doing things.
Really
And
does.
so, it got us into, myself, I grew up in baseball. My 2 brothers did. My dad had us play ball when we were just little. But it brought a lot of other kids into the program. And by the time we were into the Jim Gimmick era in high school, we had a damn good team. We tied for the conference championship our junior year, and we won it outright our senior year, and lost out to Madison West 2-1 to go to the state tournament that year. And Madison West had a couple thousand in school, and we had 100. So it was a pretty great accomplishment to get a bunch of country bumpkins to play on that level.
Yes.
And my feeling of the Verona early years in sports were always great. I remember my dad and Bill Delk talking about their basketball team when they played at a place, I remember it, but I couldn't really describe it real well, called Woodman Hall. I don't know if it was an old dance hall that was downtown, kind of behind where Miller's is, no, well, more behind where Ace Hardware is, up in the next block. I remember being in the building when I was just a little kid, and I remember them guys talking about Bill Delk, who was long to serve the city of Verona for 30, 40 years. But he was kind of the Verona leading scorer during those high school years. Back when everybody shot from all over the floor, they shot underhand. They hadn't developed the overhand type shooting yet. And it would have been fun. I wish I could have seen it, but of course I was not quite around yet.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of memories that some people could probably, like John Scherer, some of the older guys around town might have more vivid memories of the events. I think it was a dance hall kind of a community center.
Yeah, I had heard of that.
Called Woodman Hall.
Yeah, you had heard of it?
Yeah, that was.
I remember it.
That was where Stan's house is now. Right on the
Who lives
corner.
there? Well, Bill Stam built a house there,
Stan's
yeah.
house,
Yeah, I don't know who lives there now, but Bill lived there for a long, long time, right on that corner lot.
Yeah.
But,
Corner of Schumann and Park Lane.
Yeah.
yeah, it was, it's been gone for a long, long time. I don't know what happened. They tore it down, burned down, or whatever, it disappeared. But, you know, we didn't have a lot of facilities, and like we have now, I'm pretty proud of Verona. You know, I see, wow, you drive around Stampfl Field. When it was initially named Stampfl Field, they hung a plaque up at the Church Street Diamond. Well, that was torn down, and the Verona Council at that time then voted to transfer the name downtown at the new facility. And then, of course, the Bank of Verona, they bought the real nice big monument out by the highway, you know, Stampfl Field,
Yeah.
which, you know, was a great honor. The only unfortunate part of it was that by the time my dad was honored for all the different endeavors he had in Verona, he had already passed away. You know, that was the sad part of it. When we had the dedication, you know, my mother was, of course, there, but it would have been nice if he could have been recognized for the many, many years he put in, you know, managing the home talent team, raising money for youth events, trying to keep things going in town. We didn't have anything. So, but it's been a nice family tribute, and now, you know, you see the article in the paper, the game for Sunday between Utica and Verona is scheduled at Stampfl Field in Verona. So, and I have hopes it'll stay that way for a long time.
Well, I think it
Did you play on hotel?
Oh, yeah, for a long
That
time.
goes back a long way with George Gust and.
Yeah, I played with George, Jay Henderson.
Yeah.
In fact, Jay Henderson was,
And, Garfield's Dan.
I never played with them guys. No, I played with George, and Jay Henderson came back. Jay was playing with the Henderson family in that Eagle Highland Riley team that played in Madison.
And then there was a.
And then when Jay came back to Verona, he taught me more about baseball than I ever could have learned going to school.
Is that the bus driver?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jay was such a big help. When I first started playing, I was playing high school baseball and playing Legion ball, and I was hanging around with home talent all the time. I didn't have a suit. And one night we just had a practice game with somebody, and we were one player short. So they said, "Why don't you play?" So the other team, so I went out and played. And I did all right. So one of the guys said, "Geez, you know, maybe we should give him a suit in case we ever run short again." Well, but about a week later, I got to play again. And I did pretty good. So he said, "Gee, you know, why don't you go in and play?" So I started playing. And I played second base. Well, the first two games I played right field. Then I played second, and Jay Henderson played short. So I had a great arm. I played catch all my life with my dad. And I had a strong, accurate arm. Jay's arm was shot. So one day, Jay, before the game, he said, "You know, why don't you and I switch positions?" He said, "I'll play second, you play short." That was it for about the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Stood in the same spot. So,
Oh, I was, I played against them quite a bit there, from our team, and when we played Verona, we kind of had him pegged. He's pretty modest. He was a pretty good ball player, I'll tell you.
But Jay even tried out for one of the farm teams down in Chicago someplace.
yeah. Playing with George was fun. George Gus, in his own nature, was really a good guy. Fun guy to play ball with. And Donnie Lendner was kind of the same old. You know, no matter what happened in the course of the game, they'd never get upset with him. You know, you could boot the grounder, and Don, he always called me Dubber. I'd mess one up, and he'd say, "Don't worry about it, Dubber." He said, "Just get the next one." And, you know, now those guys are all gone. You know, the group I played so much with just a lot of those guys have gone on. Years ago, we had, I don't know if you ever remember Reverend Al Flessner. He was playing with us. He was, I think, was he at St. James? Yeah, he played ball with us for a couple of years. Nice man, very nice man. But, you know, we all blended together, you know, it was, Verona's a little town, we had fun, you know, it's, so my memories of
Bill
Verona.
Cowie,
Do what?
Bill Cowie.
Yeah, I
He was
never,
about this.
I knew
Red
Bill.
Settle.
I knew of Bill, and Bill used to stop and see my dad,
Yeah.
but I never saw him play ball or didn't know, you know, I know him other than when he visited the house over the years. But for tonight, I don't want to keep you guys, it's not you guys by your bedtime.
Well, this is our, we got your, past our wish.
Big night out, Lenny.
Well, I want to thank Lenny for coming down and
Yeah.
sharing his experience with us. It's always interesting. Something that we've gone over ourselves, but to get it recorded for history is, it'll be in the library, it'll be on TV. When Andy gets around to it, I don't know when that's going to be, but usually post that, Andy?
Next week, it should be on a week from today.
A week from today, okay.
Oh,
And then you put do we always get another disc? Do you have?
Okay, I've got last month, and I'll get this one together, and I'll give it to you next month.
Okay. Could you make an extra one for lining?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, that'd be good. Well, we want to thank you for coming down
well, it's fun.
and sharing that.